Welcome in episode 19 of Uncaged Sports Talk. I'm Luke Sarenka. Here on this episode, got some Eagles fallout to talk about that Eagles-Niners game, which I know is not the result all of us Eagles fans wanted. But before we get into that, I want to introduce my guest this week, Marc Farzetta. I've had him on before. How you doing, Marc?
I'm doing fantastic, Luke. What's going on, man? Thanks for having me on again.
Nothing much. Just been working with this new job, working like crazy, long hours. But what have you been up to?
It's legal, right? What you're doing is legal. It's in the clear. Have you discussed it with your audience yet?
Yeah. Well, they actually don't know the gist of it. My main audience does, like the people that I'm close with do. But medical device company, and I'm a courier just delivering implants and trays for a company called Zimmer Biomet to hospitals.
What was that? Implants? Is that the number one thing on your priority list?
Yeah, hips, knee, and shoulder implants.
Oh, right. For
surgeries.
Okay.
For like OR surgeries.
All right, fantastic. Well, hopefully, you won't be delivering anything I need in the not too distant future. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Hopefully, I'm not delivering anything for any Eagles players. Hopefully, they stay injury free.
Yeah.
For the most part, that would be nice not to have to deliver anything for that.
Maybe you could deliver a heart to this defense. I mean, come on! Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I apologize. Miss Kuzi.
What's your... I want to get your take on
how
the game went on... on how the game went on Sunday against the Niners.
The way I've been describing that game that I officially tried to bury on Wednesday, and then Dom DeSandro and Greenlaw ended up having to have a conversation to apologize to one another. So that was yet another day that it was extended. So, I was really trying to bury it. And now here I am digging it up again. Thanks, Luke. But here's where I'm at. I still feel the same way. I expected that game to be a hard-fought battle. I expected the Eagles to come out on the winning side of that hard-fought battle. Not only did that not happen at all, what we got out of it was an embarrassing performance by the Philadelphia Eagles. And if they're being honest with themselves, which I'm pretty sure everybody to a man in that locker room with an Overcare complex is being honest with themselves, they're embarrassed too because they know they're a better football team than the football team that showed up against the 49ers. Now, look, there are no excuses in it. It was embarrassing. The Eagles got beat. They were not the better team on that day. However, I would like to see a rematch of that in the postseason. Obviously, with the Eagles as the number one seed, I would love to see that with the Eagles hosting the 49ers again. That would be the ultimate, to be able to beat them and make it to the Super Bowl, and then everything's legitimate, everything's on the up and up, and then we could, instead of complaining about Brock Purdy not playing or the Eagles being on short rest or whatever the case may be, and through the gauntlet of games that they've been through, then we could focus more on maybe a bad call by a referee or one bad throw from Brock Purdy or one mistake they made, something like that. But all in all, what we got out of that game was an embarrassing performance by the Philadelphia Eagles. And I really hope that that's the worst game they'll play all season.
My biggest takeaway from the game, I feel like it went south because the type of the team the Niners are. The Niners are a front-running team. Once they get a lead, I said it last week on this podcast, once they get a lead, you're in deep trouble. It happened in the Cowboys game. And as much as we all hate the Cowboys, I don't think the Niners are that much better of a team than the Eagles and Cowboys, the way the scores look. The scores look like they're far and away better. But I don't think they're that much better. I think it came down to you had those two drives early on in the game. You capitalize on those two drives. You go up 14-0. It's a completely different game.
Sure.
They're not running the ball with McCaffrey as much. Purdy has to throw the ball. They provided a stat. I heard a stat last week. When Purdy has to throw over 30 times, he throws at least one pick. In every game he's thrown over 30 times, he throws at least one pick.
Wow.
If you go up 14-10-0, completely different game. And it could potentially get ugly the other way because I don't know if the Niners are the type of team that can claw back.
Well, I'll say this. We went through the whole game multiple times. I mean, we went through it on the post-game show with Seth Joyner and Mike Missinelli and Bill Colarulo and everybody and Kayla Santiago, and we went through the whole thing. And finally, at one point during the post-game show, I just said, we keep on naming all these different things. There's like 15 things the Eagles could have done differently and won that football game. But when you get to 15 things, you're not supposed to win that game.
Yeah.
When you get to 15 things, that's where you get to the embarrassing loss. And as far as the stat with Brock Purdy and throwing interceptions and all that, here's the thing. He didn't look like he was struggling in that game, even a little bit. The amount of motion. Look, their game plan was perfect. The Eagles having a lack of personnel on defense. Christian Ellis, who was a guy that ended up getting cut, and now he's being picked up by the Patriots. How about that?
Yeah,
like that. Bottom line. The Eagles were not good enough. No excuses, like I said. But if you're looking for a reason to be optimistic about maybe the next time they play, it looks like they'll have better personnel the next time they play. They'll at least have a guy like Zach Cunningham. They'll have whatever Shaq Leonard turns out to be the next time they play. And hopefully Goddard, Goddard will be playing tight end, but more so on the defense end of things. Yeah, that would help in the red zone. But on the defense end of things, it kind of looks like this Eagles team just got blown out of the water because they did. And there's no excuses to attach to that. All you can do is cross your fingers and say the next time around, hopefully it's in Philadelphia. Hopefully the Eagles handle their business to hold on to that number 1 seed as they are in the driver's seat, and they only further solidify that as the season goes on to the point of clinching it. And then we can all move on and be happy. Now, there is one little thing that it's very tempting, Luke. It's very tempting. And maybe it just means I'm an evil person. But I just like the idea of the Eagles not facing the 49ers again. And the 49ers losing early in the playoffs and don't even have an opportunity to try to beat the Eagles again. And the Eagles go and they win a Super Bowl. And then Niners fans get to whine and bitch and moan for another entire offseason saying, if we just would have had one more chance.
I actually think there's a chance that could potentially happen.
Oh, I know. I'm kind of excited for it.
I think the team that I want to play them, avoid both teams until the NFC Championship if possible.
Yeah.
Cowboys, Niners. It's hard to beat a good team 3 times, or it would be 4 times in a row at this point.
Oh, 4 times in a row. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I like it.
The playoff game the year before, it's hard to beat a good team 4 times in a row.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to beat a good team twice. I mean, yeah. But you're right. You're absolutely right.
That also has me worried too with this Eagles game coming up. Like, even if we beat the Cowboys, which we need to, it has me worried that come playoff time, it's hard to beat the Cowboys 3 straight times.
Yeah, and I know they beat
is a lot.
And I know they beat the Giants 3 times last year, and everyone said how hard that was going to be, and it ended up not being very hard. But when it comes to a team like the Dallas Cowboys, it is going to be a different animal because look, the Cowboys are a good football team, and they've been a good football team for a while now. They just happen to always also be the team that is not ready for prime time, the team that's not ready for the postseason, the team that's not ready to win in the postseason. And there's only so many times a good team in the regular season is going to get bounced out early in the playoffs. So it's almost like you go into the argument of maybe they're due. But if you're the Eagles, you just want to rip their hearts out. You want to go in because, look, they have a similar advantage here to what the 49ers had because it's the second team in a row that the Eagles are facing that is on more than the typical week of rest. They played on Thursday night, just like the 49ers played on Thursday on Thanksgiving, and then they had the long mini bye week, and then they were able to try fly across the country and play the Eagles and win. The Cowboys are getting that long mini bye week, and they're staying at home, and the Eagles are going to visit them. So if that is something that factors into your decision-making on how to bet this game, on how to judge whether or not the Eagles are going to win or lose this game, that obviously goes in the favor of the Dallas Cowboys. But I think this entire Eagles team has the same attitude that A.J. Brown has. And I don't know if you saw A.J. Brown in the locker room this week, yesterday, as a matter of fact. He was acting like this is going to be a reckoning. This is going to be
we'll be ready.
A big-time prove-it game. Everyone's going to be ready. Everyone's going to be energized. Everybody's going to go in there, not with the chip on their shoulders, so to speak, but with the attitude of, this is his words, not mine, the attitude of everyone is trying to take what's on our plate. And what's on the Eagles' plate right now is that number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs where they get the first round bye and they get to watch week 1 in the playoffs and watch everybody else get tired and use up all their energy, hopefully, and the Eagles come in and be able to take advantage of that number 1 spot.
Get the number 1 spot with the Packers beating the Lions, which I think could potentially happen. It's almost like the
Jordan Love's on fire
Vikings.
Right now.
So Packers beat the Lions round 1. Cowboys obviously would win. And then you would have Cowboys Niners round 2. They beat up on each other. They can go to war. While the Eagles get the Packers matchup, even though the Packers are playing well, I'm pretty sure we'll all take that in Philly.
Yeah.
Jordan
Yeah.
Love coming to Philly. I'll take that all day. And just that entire Packers team coming to Philly.
Yeah.
I'll take that all day long.
Yeah,
While
Jordan
the
Love has been
Cowboys
playing.
and
Yeah.
Niners go to war. I
Yeah.
have heard people state that if the Eagles lose this Cowboys game, which there's a good chance they could,
Yeah.
that they fall to the 5 seed. Even if they do, though, because they will, in theory, but even if they do, Eagles are still in control of their own destiny. It might not look like it standings wise because you'll see the 5 seed next to the Eagles, but they're
Right.
still in control of their own destiny. Because if Eagles and Cowboys both finish 14-3, the Eagles still will win the division because common opponents will be even. The Eagles lost to the Jets, Cowboys beat the Jets, but that would mean the Eagles beat the Cardinals in week 16.
Uh-huh.
And Cowboys lost to the Cardinals, so common opponents are even. That Cardinals loss, though, for the Cowboys comes back to bite them.
Yeah.
With 3 NFC losses compared to only 2, even if the Eagles lose this week. So the Eagles still are in control of their own destiny.
Yes, they are. The driver's seat, my friend.
Just need 4 out of the next 5, one way or another.
Yeah.
Even if you lose this game. If you win this game, you just need 1 out of the next 4. Because then you got the ultimate tiebreaker and you have a 2-game lead.
Mm-hmm.
So this,
and then you hope you get to the Giants, the Cardinals, and then the Giants again.
Yeah, that stretch could be huge just to cruise. I hope this game, I think the reason this game's so much bigger for us than the Cowboys, we don't want Jalen Hurts or anyone on our team playing on that turf at MetLife. You win this game, say the Niners wind up dropping the game to the Ravens on Christmas, you don't have to play your starters on that last Giants game at MetLife. It's all wrapped up by then. That's ideal. You get 2 weeks to rest and let just teams go to war throughout the playoffs while you're just sitting there looking pretty. For 2 weeks, you get a 2-week rest.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
I want to know your thoughts on Nicholas Morrow, how that was pitiful. I saw a stat, 175 yards he gave up. The next closest, I think, was Eli Ricks with 44.
In the passing game, yeah.
Yeah. That's insane.
I'm going to tell you a little story, Luke. It's about me, and it's not flattering. I went to Archbishop Wood High School. I played 1 year of football. I was a starting free safety for our freshman football team, and we went up against a little team called LaSalle. And I remember in that game, I let up 2 touchdowns. I bit hard on the hitch and go, and corner of the end zone route ended up being, and I got beat both times for touchdowns. Okay, that was probably the worst in watching the film. That was probably the worst I'd ever seen anyone attempt to cover anyone. Watching me try to cover someone. Until I watched Nicholas Morrow try to cover Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle. Holy pots and pans. At least I got my hands on the guy, and then I'm breaking free. Nicholas Morrow was just lunging at nothing. It was like abracadabra. The guy's gone. There was 1 or 2 instances where he actually had his hands on Deebo Samuel, and Deebo Samuel was like, that's adorable, and just kept going. It was terrible. And look, he is what we thought he would be. He's a body. He would show you some flashes of being able to play consistently as your middle linebacker, and that Zach Cunningham came in and said, yeah, this is going to be my job now, and he took that job and has played very well this season, has been a very good replacement for TJ Edwards, who a lot of people don't give enough credit to for as well as a linebacker as he was in this Eagles system last year and the year prior, and how he developed as a middle linebacker for this Eagles team. So Zach Cunningham has done a phenomenal job this year, given the role that he has taken on. Bringing in Shaq Leonard, it's no mistake that you play a team like the 49ers, you get the brakes beat off you like you did against the 49ers, then all of a sudden you're looking for linebacker help because they have shown that you can't survive. And let me bring you to this. The Nick Sirianni addressed the media on Monday, and the media asked him about the linebacking core and the reports about Shaq Leonard. And he's like, oh, I really like our linebackers. They're really good and stuff. And I really like our linebackers. And Shaq's a good player. And I covered him or I coached him and blah, 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 right? All that stuff. Meanwhile, they bring in Shaq Leonard. Chris Ellis gets cut. And now Zach Cunningham is healthy enough to come back. So if you're talking about the locker room, the linebackers room with Shaq Leonard and Zach Cunningham healthy, then yeah, I kind of like that linebacker room as well. So when it comes to Nicholas Morrow, it was only time. Look, he's a depth guy. The idea of him being the guy, with the Kobe Dean being the guy at the beginning of the year, just wasn't meant to shake out this season. The Eagles and Howie Roseman and the relationship, thank goodness, Nick Sirianni had already with Shaq Leonard is something that I think will really help the Eagles down the stretch, spell other guys of snaps, and also bring in a guy like Shaq Leonard who has a nose for causing fumbles, a nose for getting interceptions. He's not an all-pro anymore, but that's not the physical ability of him might have left a little bit. He went from 98 snaps 2 seasons ago in Indianapolis to just 70 snaps this season in Indianapolis. So maybe the physicality, maybe that's not there, but the knowledge, know-how, and the ability to capitalize on a situation where the ball's exposed a little bit, he'll jump all over that. That aggression ain't going anywhere. So when it comes to a playmaker, that's what you're still getting in Shaq Leonard.
Yeah, I was excited about the signing just because it's gotta be better than Morrow.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's an upgrade. People are like, he's not a savior. I'm like, no kidding, he's not a savior. No, he's not he's an upgrade. Any opportunity you have at any point in the season to upgrade a position, if you can do it, you do it. And that's what Howie did.
His job too, if we play the Niners again, just keep McCaffrey in front of you. Just keep him in front of you. Don't even and Debo. Keep him in front of you. Don't let him get behind you. Yeah,
break their ankles, tie them up and punch that football loose.
The one play that stuck out to me with Morrow on Sunday was the McCaffrey play when he went like on a wheel route on the left sideline and Morrow went down towards the flat area. At the game, I was like, where are you going? There's no one in front of you. Like, you had no reason to go down and try to bite on it. It wasn't even thrown yet.
Even by the Eagles' standard of linebacker for the vast majority of my life, unfortunately, it was a low standard. Even for that low standard, it was lower than that, watching Nicholas Morrow play last Sunday.
Before I ask you for your prediction on this week's game, for the Eagles-Cowboys game, I want to know your thoughts on the Dom DeSandro fight.
In the moment, I'm like, you can't put your hands on a player. And then I was like, you definitely can't talk jive to a player either. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, hold on a second. Dom is trying to, break up a fight. How many times have we seen guys on the sidelines, like an opposing player run on the Eagles sideline or the Eagles run on an opposing player's sideline, and you see a lot of people who are not players, try to separate guys that are fighting, like trainers, for instance, coaches, even like the security guy did it, and everybody is bent out of shape. Why? Because he looks like he could beat the ass of many people in the NFL. If it's a small, like 5'5" trainer that's trying to work on calisthenics through most of the game, people aren't saying boo. But the fact that it's Dom and he's a bit of an intimidating character, then people start to bring it up. Also, the fact that Dom knows how to handle himself, so he can throw that's BS in a player's face and not really be afraid of any repercussions. But the 5'5" trainer fella that's got the rubber band and he's telling players to go like this, work that elbow. He does it, and nobody bats an eye. Dom does it. Oh my goodness gracious, the world's going to end. So looking back, like in the moment, you don't put your hands on a player. You don't talk jive to a player if you're not a player. Even if you're a coach, I don't like it. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But then in the aftermath of it, I was like, what was the big deal again? Why did we all get what the hell happened here? And Dom is well worthy of a standing ovation as he walked off that field.
When I was at the game, I was like, that's wild. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
I was like, Dom could maybe he told his own in a fight too if it broke out into
Dom is like, I wouldn't be surprised if he told Greenlaw, like, yeah, go get 3 more of your buddies. 4 of you's on me. Let's go.
The one thing too, a lot of non-Eagles fans are upset about it, but it was just instinct out of him. He's a security guy. Right. It's in his job description to try to diffuse situations to protect players and coaches. Yeah. That's what he thought he was doing. Now, could he have maybe handled it slightly differently? Like maybe instead like put his arms out towards both people, then turn towards Devontae and be like, yo, Devontae, just back up. It's not worth it. Not worth a flag. That could have maybe been another way to handle it, but it was just instinct to try to break it up one way or another.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, if anyone's ever been in a sticky situation, and Dom is in a sticky situation right there, and it's right in front of him, you know what? I would have had a problem. Here's what I would have had a problem. If Dom would have been on the other end of the sideline and saw that little skirmish and ran down the sideline to try to pick a fight, then I'd have a problem.
Yeah.
It was right there in front of him. I think anybody who has an idea or an instinct of diffusion or protection, especially protecting your own guy, like an Eagles player, for instance, you know, a guy that you go to work with in the same office, basically, you're going to try to handle that situation. He didn't sneak it out. It happened right there in front of him.
Just natural instinct. Just jumped right in front of him.
Yeah.
His mind was like, oh, fight. Let me break this up.
I've been in a situation myself where something's happened in front of me, and I'm like, I try to play peacemaker, and I'm like, wait a minute, I have nothing to do with this. What am I doing here? Why am I even doing this? But just a natural instinct is like, you don't want to see anybody get hurt. I didn't throw that's BS in somebody's face, but you know what I'm saying.
My uncle, he fishes with Lane Johnson.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, like, they're fishing buddies sometimes. And Lane Johnson was telling my uncle about Dom DeSandro. They were talking about him.
I know nothing.
Before
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Lane Johnson and the team actually called Dom DeSandro the fixer, just because when stuff pops up, like situations pop up, they just go away. Like when Lane Johnson had
not listening. I'm not privy to any information. I can't be held accountable in the court of law. Luca Brazzi, you're Italian. Jeez, come on, man.
Well, when Lane Johnson had his PED suspension, it just went away just immediately. They never really heard about it afterwards.
Well, he didn't play.
Dom would go to the NFL, and it would just basically be shut down. Like you would not hear talk about it anymore.
These sound like fish stories. I got to be honest.
It was. I was like, that it reminded me of that this week when he called Dom DeSandro the fixer. I immediately texted my uncle when that happened. I was like, yo, they went after Dom. But I also want to get your thoughts before we pivot to some other topics.
Yeah.
On the tush push.
Yeah.
Because that's been a divisive topic this year. I know all Eagles fans support it.
Yes.
Just because it's been amazing. When you're at a game and they're going for the tush push, it's like, well, you know it's coming. In all the stadiums standing up like, well, you know it's coming. It's a first down.
I love when Nick Sirianni said. I love when he said they don't have 1st and 10, they have 1st and 9. Like I think that was such a baller line by Nick Sirianni. But I think it's a great play. I mean, what is more football than here's our 11 guys lining up, there's your 11 guys lining up, stop us. You know what's coming. Beat us. You know who talked about it the best and most brilliantly? And if I saw him, I would give him a hug. Mike McDaniel, the head coach of the Dolphins. Mm-hmm. He said, they were asking him after the Dolphins lost to the Eagles, what do you think about that play? And he said, I'm amazed at the attention to detail that they have when they run that play. Because to have the success that they have and the success that they've enjoyed while running that play, it shows you how much they pay attention to every single minute detail on that play. And basically it was like, as a coach, you have to applaud that. And I'm like, yes, thank you. Finally, somebody who gets it. I think it's a great play. Look, if other teams around the league were doing it half as decent as the Eagles, this isn't a conversation. And I did see a report that came out today, I believe it was, about Roger Goodell. The report was that he doesn't actually want to get rid of it. That was just something that was thrown out there. So I don't know what's true. I don't know what to believe. But the bottom line is it's a great play. If other players could do it, if other teams could do it, it wouldn't be an issue. The fact that it seems like only one team, and that team happens to be the Philadelphia Eagles, can do it. And you know what? In the 4 snaps Marcus Mariota was out there playing for the Eagles on Sunday, he ran the tush push and got a first down. So if Marcus freaking Mariota can do it, so can the world, my friend.
I think a lot of the play has to do with Jason Kelsey. Jason Kelsey is what makes that play work.
Yeah, the whole offensive line being as great as they are, and Jalen Hurts can squat 600 pounds. That's incredible.
I saw a clip, and I forget who was talking about it, but even before we had Hurts, if you remember, Carson Wentz, before they even did the tush push part of it, just the QB sneak part of it.
Yeah.
We were very successful at it with Carson Wentz, just QB sneaks.
It's the offensive line, man.
They were showing like Jason Kelsey was still getting the 2 to 3 yard push every time. It's the offensive line that push, even if you get rid of the push part. Okay, get rid of it. They'll still get it 92% of the time. I also find it's just I want to see someone be able to stop it too. I'm almost getting to that point. Like even as an Eagles fan, it hurts to say, but I'd love to see like the celebration someone would have if they stop it.
I want to see them run another fake, and I forget who they ran the fake. Was
Commanders?
It Commanders or Buccaneers? It was early in the season. Yeah. It was one of those games where they lined up in the tush push and Jalen Hurts ran to the outside.
Yeah,
and I think they did convert. Might have been I don't remember. I don't remember. But I just a little bit more of that. Let me see a little bit more of that.
Yeah, I remember like a friend telling me with the Super Bowl this past year. It's going back to the Super Bowl, but what would have been a great ending because of how, even if the Eagles lost, a great ending to that Super Bowl with how dominant the tush push was, would have been Eagles have the ball. It gets to a 4th and inches. I don't know what the time on the clock would be, but 4th and inches, around a minute on the clock, and the tush push gets stopped to end the Super Bowl. Like, that would have been historic. That would have been talked about forever.
You know what I'm waiting for? I'm waiting for Jalen Hurts, for them to line up in the tush push formation, the brotherly shove formation. And I'm waiting for Jalen Hurts to like dip his head. The whole offensive line stands up instead of goes down. And Jalen Hurts pushes forward and just sneakily hands the ball to DeAndre Swift, who breaks to the outside for a touchdown. That kind of thing.
I'd love to see some wrinkles off of it too.
Yeah.
It's a funny play at this point. Like, I just laugh when I see it.
Absolutely.
Now to get your prediction before we pivot to college football, to ask about the college football playoff talk that's going on. What's your prediction on this Eagles-Cowboys game?
My prediction, I got a couple other numbers. I got to crunch, a couple other pieces of film I got to watch, you know what I mean? But as of right now, what I am leaning towards is that the Eagles win this game 34-27. I think that this offense has a lot to prove after sputtering out of the gate. They moved the ball well, 12 plays, 12 plays in their first 2 drives each. 24 plays, they had to settle for 3 points, and they were actually getting out to a good start and had to settle for the field goals. So I think they have a lot to prove in that regard. I think they'll have an opportunity to prove it here against this Dallas team who showed that they could, if they allow points to Geno Smith, okay, and they allow yards to Geno Smith and the Seahawks, I think this Eagles team could go out and put a hurt on them as well. And I do think that this Eagles defense will force a turnover. I could see them cashing the turnover in for a touchdown on Dak Prescott, maybe a pick 6, maybe a fumble. But I do see the Cowboys being able to rally in the second half and making a game of this, but the Eagles come up with the knockout punch. So right now I'm leaning towards a 34-27 Eagles victory.
Earlier this week, I like that score. I wish I would have thought about that score. But earlier this week, my initial prediction, my initial feel just after losing the Niners game, my initial feel was that they lose this game. 31-27. I predicted the Eagles to lose last week, 31-21.
Okay.
But my initial feel was they lose this game, but I changed my opinion on that. I'm going to go Eagles 31, Cowboys 20.
Whoa.
I don't see the Eagles losing back-to-back games with Jalen Hurts and
neither do I, but
it's
11 points, you're a maniac.
11 points is a bit out there. I like the 34-27 prediction.
I'm just
31-20 is the next score I could come up with.
I'm just you did say you're an Eagles fan, right?
Yeah. Eagles 31-20.
You don't say.
Yeah. So I just don't see this Eagles team with Jalen Hurts and Sirianni losing back-to-back games. Earlier in the week, I thought the Eagles might lose it, but it doesn't make sense that this team would lose. They're 30-6 under Jalen Hurts since the flower speech.
Oh my
And
God.
that includes
Flower
the playoffs.
power. Flower
Yes,
power,
since
baby.
the flower power speech, they're like 30-6, and they haven't lost back-to-back games since. There's something to be said for that. I think they come out with intensity, and I think they come out firing, ready to prove a point.
Okay.
I am going to play a clip to wrap up the Eagles part of the show.
Dallas, we hate you.
Dallas sucks! Dallas sucks! Dallas sucks! Dallas sucks! Dallas sucks! Dallas sucks!
Those two, the second clip was after the Eagles-Cowboys game this year.
Okay.
I recorded it on the escalator leaving. So I was like, I'll post that again. I'll show that again. But I want to, if any Cowboys fans wind up watching this, if any of my friends that are Cowboys fans wind up watching, I'll have to tell them that timestamp, which is like 31:25.
Acquaintances that are Cowboys fans, not friends. Come on.
Gonna pivot now to college football. Keep this part a little brief. Not a huge college football watcher, but I want to know your thoughts on the college football playoff and leaving Florida State out and the teams that they put in.
I'm all for expansion. This would be a good argument for it. I don't really have much of an opinion on it. I don't follow college like you. I don't follow college football close enough to be able to argue with Michigan or Alabama or where Louisville should be or where Penn State should be or where Florida State should be. But I do feel like expansion is a necessary thing. If you're even going to have a playoff, I don't know if it's something where they got to – I know here's what they're up against. Costing other teams home games and the opportunity to make that money. So if you expand it, how do you expand it? Because you're not going to shorten the season. Are you going to go like the NFL and expand it? Well, then the first-round draft picks that are about to be first-round draft picks, guess what? More guys aren't going to play. Similar to the way they do now and not playing for bowl games when they're ready to go into the NFL draft. So you're kind of between a rock and a hard place right now. I can't argue for Ole Miss. I can't argue for LSU. Georgia's an odd one. But it's just one that I can't really give you too much of a hot take on. I'm sorry.
My view on it is I think my Mike Corey, who I had on earlier this year.
Sure. Yeah. Great guy.
He would probably 100% agree with this take on it. It's about money. The teams they put in is about money. Who would you rather watch? A Florida State with no QB? Because I'm a casual college football watcher. The casual college football fan, who would you rather watch? Florida State with their quarterback injured or Alabama with the history behind Alabama? I know Florida State has a history, but they have their starting quarterback injured.
Alabama.
1,000% Alabama. I almost thought they might try to find a way to put Georgia in over Texas, and then you'd have a Michigan, Washington, Alabama, Georgia, which would be ratings galore, because that would bring in the casual viewer.
Well, hold on a second. Is Taylor Swift dating any of these players? Do we know for a fact that nobody else is dating? No? Okay, never mind.
I just find it funny with it's a business at the end of the day, and they're going to do what you want. They're going to put the best teams in. Might not be the most deserving team, but they're going to put the best teams they see fit in because they want the most competitive games. They don't want a TCU getting in like last year and then getting their doors blown off in the first round, or like Cincinnati. They got in and then got blown out. Back-to-back years, they had a team get in that was undefeated, but then they went up against real competition. And got blown out. It wasn't close. They're trying to avoid that this year, and I think they probably did with these matchups.
Absolutely.
Before we pivot to the NFL Power Rankings and our best bets and locks for the week, I want to let you all know to head over and visit my friend Dan the Man Stanley at Sheridan Nissan, where they will hook you up with a new car. Just let them know Luke Sarankin on Cage Sports Talk sent you. Now for Luke's list. I'm going to get your takes on this after I go through them, see where you agree, what you disagree with on the list. Trending down, I get the Steelers. This year, I've noticed with my teams that trend down and up, a lot of it is just because almost by default, because of how bad the NFL has been this year.
Mhm.
The Steelers trend down because they thought their offense didn't look good this week and they just lost Kenny Pickett for a bit, maybe a season, and Mitch Trubisky is horrible. Like, we all know how bad Mitch Trubisky is. So the Steelers trend down 9 spots to 21. The Bengals move up 9 spots to 13. Jake Browning looked good in that game against the Jaguars. Granted, Trevor Lawrence got hurt, but the Bengals move up to 13. They still got Jamar Chase. Joe Mixon looked really good. They still got the offensive pieces. They might be able to maybe squeak in if Jake Browning's serviceable. So Bengals move up to 13, 9 spots. I'm going to keep these brief to go through all of them. Coming in at number 10 is the Texans. They move up 1 spot. I had them in my power rankings in my top 10 2 weeks ago. They lost Tank Dell, but I don't think that's going to make too much of an impact to their team. CJ Stroud's been really good this year for the Texans. I think they're in a good place there in Houston where they're headed. Texans at 10. The Bills coming at 9. This one's almost by default because I feel like the Bills would be like the Texans. Josh, they've been looking better the last few weeks, the last 2 weeks after they fired their OC.
Yeah.
So, but they're 1-1 even after firing their OC. It's because there's not really any other teams that are deserving of that 9 spot. You could say the Broncos maybe, but the Broncos beat the Bills, but that was before they fired their OC. It was almost a month ago at this point because they've had their bye week already. I like where the Bills are right now with how their offense looked the last 2 weeks that they played. The Jaguars come in at 8. Trevor Lawrence was a limited participant in practice this week, so he'll likely be coming back eventually. Look gruesome, that injury, but if Trevor's there in a week or two, they'll be fine. If it would have been a significant injury, they would have dropped probably out of the top 10, which would have moved a team like the Broncos to 10. But the Jaguars are at 8, even after that loss. I think they'll be fine. CJ Beathard even looked decent when he got in, moved the ball up and down the field. Coming in at number 7, and back to the Jaguars for a second. They still got a good offense with Calvin Ridley, Travis Etienne, Evan Ingram. So that offense is still going to be able to move the ball, you would think. Losing Christian Kirk hurts, but they still got a solid team there in Jacksonville. Now you get into the better half of the league. When you're at 8, it's like above average at best. Coming in at number 7 is the Detroit Lions. They've been looking shaky as of late. I've said that the last few weeks, like the last month. What they come in at 7, their offense is still really good. They got an explosive offense that's going to be hard to stop for anyone to stop. The problem is their defense. I don't see how their defense is going to stop anyone that's good. They gave up 28 points to the Saints. That's not a good defense, giving up 28 points to the Saints. The Chiefs coming at number 6. I've been saying the same thing on the Chiefs for weeks now. Their receiving core is going to hold them back. Their defense is good. Mahomes is good. Travis Kelce is good. But that receiving core is putrid. Maybe the worst, close to the worst in the league. That's going to hold them back when it matters. Because if teams just have to stop Travis Kelce, if they can just stop Travis Kelce, they can find a way to beat the Chiefs. At least the really good teams can. Coming in at number 5 is the Miami Dolphins. I have the Dolphins coming in at 5 just because they're starting to get moving again. They just had a blowout over the Commanders this past week. Now, people might ask, why do I got the Lions below the Chiefs after they beat them? That's because the Chiefs were without Travis Kelce and Chris Jones. And then you would ask as well, why do I have the Chiefs below the Dolphins when the Chiefs beat the Dolphins head-to-head? But that's because that was a Germany game, and we all know those Germany games hard to take any stock out of those overseas games. London, Germany, hard to take any stock out of those games. So you almost get a pass for that loss. So the Dolphins come in at 5. The Cowboys, they're at 4. They don't move anywhere on this list. They still got a really good team. Not much to say about them this week. They're blowing out teams right now. They're one of the hottest teams in football. Them and the Niners are probably the 2 hottest teams in football right now. Coming in at number 3 is the Baltimore Ravens. They got a really good defense, great linebackers, Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen. Lamar Jackson's having a good year. Zay Flowers has been a really good rookie receiver. Losing Mark Andrews hurt them, which I think it might hold them back eventually because it lessens their receiving core a bit. But the Ravens are still a really good team right now. They've played consistent football through most of the year. They come in at number 3. The Eagles come in at number 2. I've been saying this for the most part for them on the year. Most of these teams have been consistent in these spots. The Eagles, you can get the defense. It is what it is. The defense is an average defense at best. Maybe above average at best if you can right the ship with these linebackers. But you can get by in today's NFL with an average defense. You saw that with the Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl. If your offense can put up 30 a game, which the Eagles offense can, you can get by with an average defense and win a lot of football games, especially when you got the second best quarterback in all of football right now. And then the Niners come in at number 1 after that beatdown of the Eagles. The Niners right now are clearly the best team in football. When they get a lead, they front run. It's hard to come back against them, and they don't look back when they get a lead. Now, if you get ahead of them, that's where their problem's gonna creep up. But when they have a lead, they're almost impossible to beat. I want to know your thoughts now on this before we get to Mark's best bets and Luke's locks.
I agree with everything you just said. No, all right, here's what I got for it. All right, so we agree that the 49ers are number 1. I'm trying to go side by side here with mine. I have the Ravens ahead of the Eagles. Look, at some point differential does matter, no matter what Nick Sirianni wants to say about it. Point differential means you control games. It doesn't just mean that you've won 50-0 over here. I mean, look at the Broncos, for instance. They have a 70-point performance for crying out loud. Or excuse me, the Dolphins have a 70-point performance against the Broncos. You know what I'm saying? So the Dolphins have shown that they can control games. The Eagles have barely controlled games from start to finish at all this year. Maybe one game, and that was the Buccaneers game, but even that kind of started out kind of weird. So they haven't really controlled games. And that's what I think point differential really does. So I would go 49ers, I'd go Ravens, then I'd go Eagles. Then I would go Chiefs, and then I would go Cowboys. When I look at power rankings, my number one thing with power rankings isn't exactly about how they're playing right now. It's about whether or not right now they're a team that could actually win a Super Bowl. So when you factor that into it, I don't have a lot of confidence in Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys winning a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. They continue to show that they choke and they choke and they choke. They'll put up great regular season numbers, and then the playoffs come around, and maybe they'll win a game, and that's fun for them. And they get to think that that's going to make them win a Super Bowl, and then they choke the following round. So I don't have them above the Chiefs just yet. When you have Patrick Mahomes, anything can happen. I know you mentioned the receiving core. They still have one hell of a run game as long as Isaiah Pacheco doesn't go punching people in the face. Look, a guy like Travis Kelce, I think, is going to be more of a consistent threat for that offense. And Patrick Mahomes obviously always knows how to find them. And Rashee Rice has really come on strong for them as a wide receiver.
Doing good last month or so.
And I think that it's only going to get better over the last 5 weeks of the season. So that's the way I have it shaken out right there. And the Dolphins, they just don't know. They're dynamic. They're exciting. They're fun. Clutch.
Cowboys thing.
Yeah. Just not yet. I can't trust the Dolphins just yet.
What about the rest of the list? The Lions?
I don't know what the hell you were thinking with the rest of this. No, the Lions are still worthy of that spot, I would say. That's a good spot for them, especially after they almost blew that game against the Saints this weekend. The Jaguars, obviously, with Trevor Lawrence, the injury not thought to be serious. That was a messed up injury. If you saw that, it was like he got
bad.
It was like
ACL and
I thought, in all honesty, he twisted his ankle one way and got hurt, and then got it twisted back the other way, and it was fine. Like, I thought they did him a favor. Like, they put it back into place. That looked like a pretzel is what happened. So no, I'm kidding, but it looked bad is what I'm saying.
It looked like ACL, Achilles all in one.
My man, Brandon McManus. Oh my God, missing that field goal and then being able to come back and hit one later. That was a bit of a rough one.
That helped me in fantasy. I wound up
it hurt.
fantasy playoff spot.
It hurt me in fantasy, but good for you. Anyway, it was pretty rough. But the Texans I would actually put ahead of the Bills simply because I think you need one team that's the up and coming team that all the other teams have to look at and go, oh, damn. And I think the Bills are kind of that team that right now at least look like they're on the downward trend. And Josh Allen throwing an interception now in 8 straight games and 2 interceptions. No, 1 interception. 1 interception shy of tying his career high for interceptions in a season with 5 weeks left to play. That's bonkers. So, yeah. It's a weird thing because I feel how would you like to be the Bills defense? The Bills defense is second in the NFL in taking the football away. And the Bills as an offense
just back on the field
are just like, here you go. They give it right back. So yeah, but no, I think it's pretty good. The rest of the list you have there. Bengals, yeah, sure. Steelers, yeah. I actually have the Steelers. Do I have the Steelers winning outright on the list I gave you? I forget. But I think this is a fine work out of you, sir.
Yeah, I've been so all over the place with the Steelers. Last week I had them at 12, I believe.
Okay.
And then they just dropped 9 spots just because that middle of the NFL right now is just a crapshoot. Like, right, how I do my power rankings, I put the teams in like tiers first, and then I rank each team in those tiers, and then I go to the next tier, rank those teams, and so on. The Steelers, they've just been all over the place. One week they're in my average tier, the next week they're in below average. At one point in the season, I think I had them. I think they were in my below average tier for the majority of the year. That's just because even though they were winning, it definitely wasn't pretty. Like, it's been ugly for them. Like, their offense is just not good. And Mitch Trubisky being hurt makes that offense really bad.
Yeah,
I'll get into them in a second with my Luke's locks, too.
Okay, go for it.
We're going to move on to Mark's best bets, and then we're going to get to Luke's locks. I'll tell you why I saved Luke's locks for last. I've been bragging about my record with my picks this year against the spread. So we'll get to Mark's best bets first, and then Luke's locks to end the show.
All right, here we go. I got the Ravens to cover the 7.5 versus the Rams. Then I got the Bears 3.5 versus the Lions. See the Lions wet in the bed after a little bit of a scare there in the beautiful New Orleans. Then the Panthers, how about this? Win outright against those Saints. The Saints go marching into depression after that one. The Vikings, ladies and gentlemen, I like them to cover the -3 against the Ravens. The Bills, I think they can beat the Chiefs in Kansas City outright. All the good stuff I said about Rashee Rice, all the good stuff I said about Travis Kelce, all the good stuff I said about Taylor Swift most likely being in attendance. I think the Bills give Buffalo one last hurrah before the end of the season, and then they wet the bed after this. But they got the Cowboys after this, and they got people. Who else do they got? They got some other teams,
like the Jets again. Maybe
they got the Patriots. They're done with the Jets. They got the Patriots again, who they lost to, and the Dolphins, who they beat. So
and the Chargers
in there as well. So this is one of those games that is a huge bonus to them if they're able to go into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. So I'm going to take the Bills. Do I have them at +2 outright? Or I think I have them at outright.
Yeah,
I have them at outright. Yeah, so keep your damn points.
I actually picked the Bills on my thing, not on my locks, but for my locks, I like these picks. I was questioning the Ravens a bit just because the 7.5 is just in line. When I see like 7.5 lines, I tend to question it. Either way, it's just like,
they're trying to get you.
A weird number.
They're trying to get you.
The Bears, I was actually thinking about, but I couldn't get myself to go either way on that line. It was just too close to call for me. The Panthers, I'll get to that one in a second.
Okay.
The Vikings, you'll see that one in a second as well. And then the Bills, I actually got them winning the game as well.
All right, stop holding out on me. Stop holding out on me. Let's see the goods.
Now for Luke's locks. I got the Colts -0.5 against the Bengals.
You're
These
crazy.
these were the lines that I from Wednesday. So the lines have changed over the past day. Like the Texans are -6.5, they're -3.5 now. But I wrote these down the other day. So Colts -0.5 against the Bengals. I think they should be able to win that game. They just are finding ways to win games right now. Shane Steichen has that offense looking really good, even with Gardner Minshew, who looked pitiful for the Eagles in that Saints game last year. That was the worst quarterback performance I've ever seen in person.
Mhm.
But the Colts are looking solid right now. I think the Colts are able to pull that off against Jake Browning and the Bengals -0.5. It's
Gardner
basically a
Minshew.
pick 'em. The Jaguars +2.5 against the Browns. There's one simple reason for this. I think the Jaguars win outright. Joe Flacco is not winning a football game in 2023. They're Joe Flacco is not winning a football
You don't like Joe Flacco? You don't like Joe Flacco?
I used to, but not in 2023. He's
Copy that.
40 years old, was a free agent for like a year and a half for a year. There's a reason he was a free agent for a year. Yeah, the Jaguars win that game even with CJ Beathard at quarterback. CJ Beathard's got to be better than Joe Flacco, and the Jaguars got a better roster than the Browns currently. With Joe Flacco there, I wouldn't take him on any team. Then the Saints is where I differ on the rankings. I get the Saints -5.5. That's
Atta guy.
strictly because I can't get myself to bet on Bryce Young. It's Bryce Young. I can't get myself to bet on that offense and Bryce Young right now. That they've looked shaky all year long. It's the reason I'm taking the Texans and with my next pick -6.5. I like the Texans -6.5 against the Jets because you're going up against Zach Wilson.
Gotcha.
Anytime you can give me Zach Wilson on a pick, I'll pick the opposite. They've been the Jets' offense has just went downhill since they started 4-3 after they beat the Eagles. I believe it was, or they had a positive record at one point. They were 4-3, 4-4
Maybe,
at one point this year.
Uh-huh.
It's been downhill ever since. The Texans -6.5. I think they win by a touchdown or more there in that matchup. And then the Vikings, I like that -2.5 against the Raiders a lot. Like, I don't know why that's not like a 6.5 point spread. Even 6.5, I think I'd take the Vikings.
Justin Jefferson's supposed to come back.
Yeah, Jefferson's first game back. Dobbs had a bad game last game.
Yeah.
But Jefferson first game back. Addison. They got some pieces there for Dobbs to work with now. And Dobbs gets his first game with Jefferson, which should be interesting. I think Jefferson alone should be able to win them that game against Aiden O'Connell and the Raiders. And the reason I saved this for last, I've been doing picks on ESPN against the spread just to keep track of my record. This year, I'm in a 99.9th percentile, ranked 256, I believe, on ESPN.
Look
with
at
a
you.
115-77 record.
There you go. You can retire already.
It's a 60% win percentage I'm basically at. 60% clip, which is, to be profitable, I believe you got to be 54% clip. I'm not betting on these games straight up. I don't have the bankroll to do that.
Oh, that sounds like you could.
But 60% win clip, well, I'm very proud of that. And I'm trying to get onto the leaderboard on the ESPN thing. But 4 picks off of the leaderboard. Hopefully I can get up there by the end of the year. My Luke's locks record is about the same. It's 41-24. So I win for every 5 games I have. 3 of these are likely to come true. Now, which 3? I got no clue. It's like if I tried doing a parlay with only 3 of these, I'd probably lose. But that's just because parlays are hard to do. But I've had a fairly good record this year, and I'm proud of that this year. I like keeping track of my record, seeing how I do. Hopefully, though, as we wrap up on this show, hopefully the Eagles can keep their good record intact. Like I can keep hopefully I keep piling onto my good record. And the Eagles pile on another victory, which can almost make it almost impossible to drop the 1 seed, because I think they should cruise past the Seahawks, Giants, Cardinals, and Giants. So hopefully they can keep their good record intact and don't drop to 14-3 and drop to 1 seed to the Niners. Because we need that 1 seed coming through Philadelphia so they can go back to the Super Bowl in Vegas, which I'll actually be in Vegas in a month.
There you go.
Competing for tag team championship poker belt. I'll wind up doing an episode with the people from poker around that time, which will be a really fun episode to do. We'll probably just talk about poker. Hopefully the Eagles got the 1 seed locked up so I can do that.
Yeah.
But I'll be in Vegas in a month, where the Eagles will be a month after to take on whatever team they play from the AFC. We need that 1 seed so we can have that actually come to fruition.
Hell yeah.
That'll do it for this episode of Uncaged Sports Talk. Thank you for coming on again, Mark.
My pleasure, brother. Thanks for having me.
It was really fun. I loved it. This was a really fun episode. I got no clue what the next episode is. It's after Dallas week, so I'll probably have on a Cowboys fan again. Hopefully Eagles win so I can talk shit and I don't have it, and he's not rubbing it in. And I can rub in that the Eagles are 2-0 against the Cowboys this year. It would be the first time the Eagles have swept the Cowboys since 2011. The first time they would have won in Jerry's World since 2017, the Super Bowl year. So tune in next week to Uncaged Sports Talk. Remember to like, follow, and comment on all our platforms. It is greatly appreciated. Thanks for coming on, Mark. Would like to have you on again in the future.
My pleasure, brother. Thanks for having me.
I told Mike Corey an idea. Have you and Mike on for an episode in the near future, which would be a fun episode.
Sounds good, brother. Thanks for having me, man.
Tune in next week to Uncaged Sports Talk, episode 20. It's been 20 weeks. It's finally here next week.